Hey guys, it's Editing Tombox here. Just so that you know, there is a giveaway in this video, but I forgot to mention it, so I'm adding it here in this very intro. This is for box number 4, 5, 6, and 7 for Phantom Rage. A full box of it. It's gonna go to 4 separate winners, and yeah, just watch this video and you will know the answer. This is that easy this time. All right. Hey guys, it's Tombox, and we have a very special guest with us here today. He is a top contender, one of the best of the best. We have Esala. Okay, this is the part that's going to be really hard for me. Wathuthantrige. Hopefully I got it right.
Close enough,
Close enough.
Wathuthantrige, but yeah.
So, Esala, if you guys don't know who Esala is, you should be paying more attention in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because he is a very, very good player. And I'm having the pleasure of him joining me on MST.TV. And today he's sharing with us his profile that you played at the Yu-Gi-Oh! Extravaganza. This was for the invite qualifier for the remote duel.
Yeah, I used this list to get top 16, which was like their version of top cut. Like, it didn't really mean anything, but it was like what got the additional mat pricing. So
the flame swordsman mat.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly.
And also says nationals.
Yeah, it was the EU Australia like national mat for the season. Like, that was supposed to be for this year, but obviously didn't happen. So
a rare mat indeed. Oh, congratulations on actually placing so well. And before we actually get started, any shout out you want to give?
Yeah, definitely. Shout out to Duelist Academy, our Patreon, where we coach. And we offered, like, beyond just coaching, we offer content, we offer deck doctors, and we offer like a Discord community along with 4 times a month box tournaments for like, as long as you're a subscriber and you're in Patreon, those are all free. So we have a lot of content to offer, and you should definitely check that out. Definitely check out the VOD on our Twitch at twitch.tv/Duelist Academy. And also we have a YouTube that we sometimes upload things from Twitch to. Also, when we have special videos that we feel like deserve to be available for everyone, not just on the Patreon, we will be posting them on there. So it's worth checking out youtube.com/Duelist Academy as well. And then also a huge shout out to our sponsor, Big City Cards. They let us have all these, they support us by giving us cards to play at events, but also give us prizes to give at our box tournaments. So huge shout out to them.
That's a very awesome sponsor. Okay, so let's get into this deck profile here, guys. And aside from deck profile, we're gonna have some awesome deck explanation coming. So you're playing Zoodiac Eldlich. Now there is no Dogmatika in here. And we've actually sorted this entire list out into chunks here. We have this section here, which would be all just Zoodiac related cards. This section here, which is exclusively Eldlich. And then this huge section here, this is what, 18 cards?
18, yeah.
Of just, I guess, interaction against your opponent. Mm-hmm. So, well, okay, why don't I let you go through this? So we have the Zoodiac package here. We have 1 Whiptail, Thoroughblade, and triple Ram. And of course, the standard triple Tanky and 1 Barrage. Now for this particular part, why is there no Rat?
So the main concept of this deck is you're not activating any effects turn 1. Rat is the most vulnerable, along with Thoroughblade, to any kind of interruption that your opponent might have. Like, the only real value you gain from using a Rat effect is like you get to go for the Mega Clops play, which we do not play Mega Clops, spoiler alert, because it is just not something you need to do to win with this deck. You just wouldn't have to, like, you by playing into cards like Ogre and Gamma being a particularly popular card in the format, you're just allowing yourself to lose access to this engine, and it's not like the engine really replaces itself anymore. You're better off just trying to make a Dryden and passing, or just sticking a Zeus when you're going second. And that's another reason why we play 3 Ram over any of the others, because it is the best one to start with. You just go Ram, put a filler Zoo on it, and then a Dryden, and then you stick on it, and it has 2k defense. And it also has a really relevant effect right now, where it gives the monster that's attached to the ability to detach to negate a trap that targets it, which will be impermanence and punishment.
Oh,
and
yes, punishment.
Virtual World Chuche. Like,
oh, that's actually really, really smart, especially for the cards that are floating around in the current format. But then with this many cards, you have what, 1, 2, 3, 4 cards to access to any of your zoos. Is that enough?
So, I mean, it basically turns into 9 copies of any zoo. Like, you play the most of Ram because that is the one you want to see, but like, you have enough access to Thoroughblade and Whiptail via the essentially 4 other copies in spell form. So yeah, like you have a decent chance of opening it, right? Like 9 copies in a 40 card deck, pretty decent chance of seeing it, seeing just one, because you only really need to see one.
Okay, no, that makes sense, because one, you can just, piggyback off of most of your extra deck anyway. So next package here, we have the Eldlich. Now, there isn't really too much to add. Eldlich has been very popular for the entire year of, I would say, 2020. But, just to go down through the list, we have double Golden Lord, we have 2 Hakero, not 3. I've seen a lot of people play 3, but I guess I'll ask you more about that in a bit. Triple Eldland, probably one of the best cards of the Eldlich engine. Triple Sanguine, Red Scarlet, and we also have Triple Conquistador. So I guess the only thing that I would ask a question about is, why not play the 3rd Hakero?
So the Golden Lands are the weakest part of the Eldlich engine. They are the card that needs at least a turn to turn into something, unless you already have Sanguine or Elden, like a way to lord on the field with it.
Okay.
And in a deck like this, where you essentially, like, just looking at the entire 40 card list, you just want every single card in your hand to be live immediately. Like, you want every single card in your hand to do something. That is how the deck was designed to interact. And Hakero was the card that's just the worst of the entire Eldlich engine of the ones that you would play, right?
Yep.
It is the one you often need the least, and it's the one you throw away the most. So it is the one that you could sacrifice 1 copy of, but you wouldn't like go so far as to not playing it. You wouldn't like even play like one of it or cut like Conquistadors down, because you like one Eldritch card does get you to the entirety of the rest of them.
Okay.
And you do want to be able to have at least 2, because in the grind matchups, or like even in the mirror, especially in the mirror, having access to that name is really important, and that effect is very good in your grind matchups as well.
Especially with virtual world stuff. I mean, if they have from what I've seen over the past weekend myself, is that it's a pretty popular option to remove away Qinglong before they actually get their setup.
Yeah, like I mean, you still prefer Conquistador against that deck, because you get to hit them when they activate the effect in hand, and they get it to resolve without effect, simply because their target is no longer on the field. So Conquistador is still better in that aspect, but it does have at least some function, and it also is good against the Shen Shen and sometimes the Nian Nian, given Nian Nian will still trigger its other effect, but that's not usually as relevant.
But at least it's not the body, right?
Yeah.
And I guess the other question here is for Elixirs. You're only playing the Triple Sanguine. There is no White Destiny. Not as many people play the Black Elixir anymore. What's your take on that?
So, I mean, the Black Elixir is essentially the worst one, right? Like, Black and White were usually mainly played so that you could burn them by like setting them and send them for a Lord, and then like they would just turn into a free Golden Land, and then you wouldn't have to actually lose any of your Sanguines. But at the end of the day, the Sanguine is the one you want to open. Like, if you open Black Awakening, yes, like if you open it with the Zoo, you can still like technically play, but it's not good going second. Using it cuts you off from any other type of summonings besides zombies, which will only be the Lords in this deck, and the Golden Lands, of course.
And speaking of like the interaction, now I want to talk about like both sides of the engine here as like a whole. Like, how do they kind of work with each other?
Okay, so a lot of the surprise of the deck is how they interact with the cards in their extra deck. How basically there's a card that you can access on either engine's extra deck that would get you access to the other half. Okay. Given it's not like immediate access, but there is niche situations that will come up where you can get access to both. But on the field, the most obvious interaction, I'd say, is when you open any Zoo and Eldland. Obviously, the most broken is Barrage, but like if you open any Zoo and Eldland, you get to go summon the Zoo, put a material on it, put a Dryden on it, and then Eldland effect, add a Golden Land of your choice, usually Conquistador. And then during the end phase, specifically the end phase, by the way, don't do this before the end phase. You want to use Dryden's effect, detach, pop the Eldland, and then the Eldland will send a different Golden Land from the deck to the grave, which will then banish itself to get Sanguine. So by opening an Eldland and a Zoo monster, you gain access to the full potential of both engines. You will have Dryden, Sanguine, and a Golden Land. And by doing it in the end phase, you get to play around Valor and Crow, so you might as well. There's no reason not to.
Makes a lot of sense. That's actually really cool. Like, well, I'll go into the extra deck soon, guys. Don't worry. We have an extra deck, and we are going to go into the side deck as well. Now, looking onto this package here. This is a huge package.
Yeah.
Triple Cosmic Cyclone, triple Book of Moon. You have triple Nibiru, triple Ash, triple Imperm. I guess these 9 are technically the hand traps. These are the interaction against your opponent. That's a lot of stuff for, I would say, like Cosmic Cyclone to me it would seem more like a going second card in some cases. You want to explain as we go? Let's start off with the Cosmic Cyclone.
So, okay, as you kind of notice with these cards, these are all cards that are very, very functional, both going first and going second. And Cosmic is one of those things that's like really strong in the format right now, especially with the popularity of Virtual World, but also just against almost every meta deck at the moment. Having a Cosmic set on your first turn, like going first, has a lot of things that it will find impact on. You will be able to hit in, like, let's say the Dragon Link matchup, in the combo matchup that you don't expect to have back removal be useful, but you will still get to hit the Divine Lance, you get to hit the Boot Sector, you get to hit like World Legacy Guard Dragon, like it will do something. And like hitting the Divine Lance is essentially the same as like imperming the Romulus, right? You're negating it by getting rid of the thing that it's supposed to do.
Yep.
So it's highly functional there. Book of Moon is one of my favorite cards since before even Phantom Rage came out. Like I played this a lot in my Invoke deck that was specifically designed to break through Dragon Link board. And this deck is also fairly solid at breaking through Dragon Link board, and it goes into how the side deck was built as well. But Book of Moon is one of those cards where if you have it going first, it's actually very hard for any of the combo decks currently to play through you booking their monster, like their normal summon, or like there's usually like you kind of have to be intuitive about when you're supposed to use it. But if you book their normal summon, it's hard for them to extend because they usually need face-up like cards to interact with. But because you're not removing it, it's not going to the graveyard. It's not something they can reborn back. It is a slot on their field that they can no longer use.
Okay. Why don't we kind of put this to the test? I'm going to give you a couple of matchups here, if you don't mind. I know this is like, we're throwing a wrench into this profile thing, but like, okay, let's go. Let's do it. Okay, let's start with, say, Dragon Link. They summon, what would you actually hit with this one?
Any of the normal summons.
Any of the normal summons. The first
also,
normal...
the normal summon in the middle, they have lost.
Okay. Then we have the next matchup, Virtual World.
Okay. So it was ruled, like we asked all morning about this, and it still isn't very clear. I'm not sure what the official ruling is, so do not take this as a claim as to what the official ruling will be. But from what we were told, if you chain Book of Moon to the activation of a Virtual World hand effect on a monster on the field, and you like Book of Moon the target, the monster in hand will not resolve with effect.
That is what I would personally rule as well, because Virtual World has to have the correct typing to send. This is similar to, like, I guess a precedent rule for that would be kind of like checking for the attack stat of a monster. It needs a certain type so that it could actually resolve properly. Since there is no proper type that it can check for, it can't send anything. That would be the logical reason behind it. It's kind of like Black Wings and Black Whirlwind. If you book the monster, they don't get the search because there's no attack stat. Similar to that. It's a similar concept anyway. So yes.
Yeah, the debate is mainly based on because it still counts as a monster, right? Like the game understands that it is a monster even though it's set, but like it wasn't like I don't know if it recognized that it was the same target. So I'm still confused on it. I'm not sure, but that's how it was ruled at the event. Like even if that was not the case, you would still just usually when they summon a monster, they're going to reveal, like they're going to have to target that for a defected hand because they didn't open city or something, right? Mm-hmm. So you will still book that monster, and that is a monster that they committed, usually a Nyan that they will have to struggle to find another copy to put in grave. And if they had to commit a normal summon to try to reveal one of their cards in hand, and you book it, that usually means that they didn't have the city anyway to put another face-up card on the field. So how are they getting a face-up card on the field to use their hand effects? They might just not have one.
That's true. Or dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs? Okay, so let's say you're going first. This card is a quick effect spell. So in the battle phase, when things are unaffected by miscellaneous source, you can book their Tyranno, and what are they going to do about it? You're not dead.
That's actually very, very good. All right, I don't think I need to test you on this anymore.
Okay, but you're not done. Because we haven't talked about how good this card is going second.
Okay,
because that's where the card really shines. So against Dragon Link, most of the cards that you want against that deck if you're not going to go the hand trap route, because we didn't really go the hand trap route here. You see, we only play, I guess I say only, we only played the 9, which is in the format when you're considering Dragon Link as a deck, you want more than that, right? Like usually those 3 aren't going to be enough unless you pair them together. Yep. But the thing about Book of Moon is it's a card you can draw as your 6th card, and it will always trade with a negate. At worst, it trades with a negate, right? Like it'll book the Herald, they'll either chain or they'll just let it flip. It'll book the Savage or it'll just be negated, which is fine. Like it trades with the negate. You always get a negate out of the way. If it resolves, it removes the Buster Lock, which is actually really important. And like forcing the Herald and removing the Buster Lock is how you get to break the board, because then you get to use Lord Effect. And like Lord Effect just kind of carries you through. It's either you get rid of the Herald so that you can use Lord, or you get rid of the Buster so that you can resolve Zeus. And that is like some of your win conditions in that matchup, right? And the thing is, it's not, Book of Moon is so old, it's not once per turn. If you open 3 books, you have cracked the board.
That's so true.
Book of Moon has won me my Dragon Link matchups for the last like month now. That card is just so good versus combo. And like try resolving, like just play your combo hand. Like if you have a combo deck that you like that's really strong in this format right now, try playing your hand. You summon your first monster and you book it. See how easy it is to extend from there. I'm telling you, Noble Knight can't really do it. Like if you're on your normal summon, and Dragon Link has a really hard time doing it. Like even if you just open Chaos Space into a Baby Dragon, you summon the Baby Dragon and you book the Baby Dragon, like it's actually a lot more impactful than people give it credit for. And it functions really well with some of the cards in our side deck.
This was reprinted at a really good time.
Konami knew. Like this is a really good card in OCG right now. It's also like really impactful in against the Zoom matchup, especially because when they enter battle phase with their Zoom monster as they're trying to make their Zeus, you just Book of Moon their summon. Like you Book of Moon their monster, and what are they going to do? You cut them off from the monster and you cut them off from their battle phase.
That's real good. I mean, Zeus has been like one of the biggest, I would say the biggest impact card from Phantom Rage. And in fact, I've seen so many Zeus over the weekend to the point where I'm like, which deck isn't actually running it? It's pretty insane.
Yeah, like that.
The amount of value about like how the game state simplifies down to the point where can you actually get rid of me before I send all your stuff away? It has gone to that point. And people that overcommit, it's like, it kind of reminds me of Excitant Knight.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it reminds me of. Where Excitant just blows up the entire board because you committed too many cards. This is kind of the same deal. Where you commit too many cards, send everything away.
It's this deck, like what separates the Eldlich Zoo deck from a regular Zoo deck is how it actually makes use of its Zeus. When a Zoo deck resolve Zeus, you are only applying pressure now from the Zeus, right?
Yeah.
If you're playing an Eldlich Zoo deck and you had any Eldlich card, just one, like a single Eldlich card, given not the Lord in like the scenario that I'm explaining, but like let's say any Eldlich spell or trap, and you resolve Zeus with that card, that one Eldlich card will outgrind anything that your opponent has because it's infinite resources. And infinite being in the sense of like 5 turns, which is infinite in current Yu-Gi-Oh, right? Like,
yeah. That's really smart. Oh my god. I can't imagine actually coming back. Since I typically play combo decks, and knowing that it's basically impossible to come back after the board's been cracked and your opponent can always trade. Even if it's just a 1-for-1 interaction, I can't come back from what I've seen. And especially when you still can have a second chance to wipe the board again, there's almost no chance. And you can reset your engine again based off of your one Eldritch card. Yeah, that's really good. That's really, really good. Holy crap. Whew. Okay, well, now let's get into this little package, the remaining package here. There's triple Droplets, triple Imperm, triple Ash, triple Nibiru. How do these all work?
Okay, I think we should talk about the 9 hand traps, I think, separately. I think I want to save Droplets for last.
Okay.
But Imperm, Ash, and Nibiru are the hand traps that will almost always be good. Nibiru being the standout, right? Like Ash and Imperm are just consistently usable versus everything. Imperm specifically because it fits into that category of cards that I can activate as like it's my 6th card and it will do something into a board.
Yes.
So it fits into that category as well. Ash is just so generically good that it hits everything. And also strong card versus Virtual World. And I thought that Virtual World was going to be a big deck for this weekend, so I wanted to respect it, and that kind of goes into the Droplet as well. But like Ash and Nibiru were some of the most impactful cards versus those decks, while also being the cards that like traded better against their cards. There you'll notice that like there won't be a single copy of Gamma in my list anywhere.
Yeah,
and Gamma is a really good card. Like Gamma is strong going second, but as much as I want tools for going second, I need to consider, okay, if I'm going first, how often am I winning? Because if I have cards like Gamma, if I have cards like Tactics in my hand, especially like a card like Tactics, because I got that question a lot when we first did this profile, is why don't we play Tactics? I am not activating a monster effect turn 1. So I will not be able to resolve this card to do anything if I'm going first. Now, that might not mean anything to you, but if I am going Dryden, set a Conch Pass, is that winning me the game? Is one interruption going to beat Dragon Link? I don't think so. So I need every single card in my hand to be live. So if there is a hand trap in my deck that will not do anything when I'm going first, I'm going to die. And that is what like this deck is built on. Like these cards need to be usable whether I'm going first or second. And they need to be strong whether I'm going first or second.
Okay, makes a lot of sense. Especially when Ash, like at one point, I guess before the whole virtual world kind of came back, Ash wasn't as popular for a while now, and seeing it come back is actually a bit of a game changer for me.
Yeah, like it's one of those where like it also fits into the category. Like Ash and Imperm are the specific hand traps where the deeper into the game you go, the stronger they get.
Yes.
So like I wanted, because this deck is designed to play a longer game, right? So you want to play the hand traps that can take advantage of forcing the longer game. And this also kind of this strategy kind of goes into something I didn't talk about Cosmic. You might have asked, you might have been thinking, how good is Cosmic into a combo board, right? Like that doesn't really fit that category, right? But Cosmic still forces a negate. Cosmic on the Buster Lock is either they let that resolve and I can summon from my extra deck again, or they have to negate it. So it does the same thing. So yeah. These are all cards that fit that category of if the game gets shorter, they can simplify it really quickly.
Okay.
But if the game gets longer, they are much more oppressive when they resolve.
Okay, really solid choice here.
And then I guess that unless you have any more questions with those, we can finally talk about droplets.
Let's talk about droplets.
Okay, so droplets, these are like arguably this is the last 3 cards in my deck. Like this is like my 37th, 8th, like or 8th, 9th, and 40th card, right? Yep. This is again respecting the virtual world deck a lot. Mm-hmm. And I think this is the only deck currently that can truly take advantage of Droplet, not even because you get to send traps for its effect so that when they use their calamities, you get to negate it with making them unable to use their Chuchate in response, right? Because you get to discard Golden Lands and Sanguines and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But when you're playing into a board with this card, you get to go really heavy. Like you get to make multiple uses out of your quick play spells and your continuous spells. Like when you resolved an Eldin already, or you resolved a Tenki, or when you're going activate Cosmic, activate Book, you get to chain the Droplet and use those cards as your cost. So you are getting around the discard effect. Like you are using Droplet without a cost essentially. And that's what this deck can do better than most other decks with this card, and why I think it's particularly good in this deck. Also, if you're using it as a going first tool, when you've resolved Golden Lands already, you don't really care what happens to them. Like once the Golden Land has been put on the board and like popped something or done whatever, you can send it for droplets as well to get the negate on, and that's like perfect use for you. Like you are fine with that trade because like you just want it in the grave anyway. It doesn't really matter if it sticks on the board. So that's just how you would use it in this deck.
I love how you actually turned this, because usually the cost of Forbidden Droplet is quite heavy. And you turned it into basically a free use. This is basically Black Friday use for our Forbidden Droplets. That's really good, really good. Is there anything else you want to add for the main deck before we get into your extra deck and your side deck?
I think I really enjoyed this main deck for this format that we're in. Obviously, like I think these 18 cards are what's going to change around for whichever the format looks like. So maybe ban list comes out or the meta shifts a little. These are the 18 cards that would change. I think the other 22 stays the same.
All right. I noticed that there's one thing in your deck that you did not play. Dogmatika. Can't you play all 3 of them?
Yes, so Dogmatika would be in the 18 defensive card line, but there are some anti-synergies with Dogma and with the Zoo part, right? You have to pick and choose. Like, so if you look at both engines, you have to pick which one you value more going second, right? Nadir Servant is obviously a very, very good card, but so is Zeus. And you're typically not using both the same turn. So which one do you value more, Zeus or Nadir Servant? And I want to say that I would rather resolve Zeus. So my deck is more focused on dealing with Zeus and having more actual defensive cards. But because I don't have to play Nadir Servant, that means I don't have to play Fleur and Punishment, which are actively just really not good cards in this deck, because the limit on punishment means I'm not summoning a Zeus the next turn, which is kind of how my deck really wants to take advantage. And it falls into that trap that I'll talk about later, where I don't want to play into their back row removal. I do not want their back row removal to be good against me, and punishment is like the only really good card going first in the Dogma engine. I do not want to have multiple Dogma cards. I do not want to have any bad cards in my hand going first, because I'm very liable to lose going first by if just having openings and them being able to attack through my board for game. I need to be able to maximize my chances of seeing another turn. And if I can see another turn, that's when I know I can win.
That's a really good answer. Appreciate you for telling us all that, because there have been people that kind of mix all of the engines in, and well, now that we got that cleared up, whoosh, we have the whole extra deck here, and then we'll go into the side deck. I guess this is going to be a much quicker part. We have 5 Link monsters, and I guess the rest of them are all Xyz based monsters. And you mentioned earlier, yes, spoiler alert, that there were no copies of Infinitrack and Megaclops. So what their choices here? We have 1 Asa, 1 Link Spider. We have the Nightmare Phoenix, Nightmare Unicorn, and Barricade Borg Blocker. Go ahead.
Right. Okay. So I can see you saw like a little bit questioning of Link Spider here. The golden lands on field count as vanillas.
Yeah.
So you can turn them into Link Spider, right?
Yeah.
And that's like an easy way to like flip them on your opponent's turn and then turn them into Link Spider on your turn. So you get to use its banish effect in the graveyard that turn and like get the appropriate Elixir, right?
Oh, okay. I was like wondering, like, what are you actually going to use this Link Spider for?
Well, Asa requires 1 Earth and anything else, right? So the Link Spider is usually that Earth. You are not actually summoning Asa with any Zoo monster. You are typically summoning it with Link Spider and like a Lord, or Link Spider and like another Golden Land or something like that.
Okay.
And the value of Asa is, in any version of Zoo Mirror, that is a Zoo monster in your extra deck. That because you will just be able to summon your opponent's Zoo monster. And that is why, because we played this card, every Zoo matchup we had was incredibly free. It was the easiest matchup we played all day, because they had to immediately answer this Asa. And you know what happens if they destroy Asa?
You get to search the Earth.
And that was something like, this is how we access our Zoo engine when we only have Eldlich cards. Either we use our opponent's Zoo cards, or we crash in this Asa and then just search a Thoroughblade. Or like search a Whiptail. It does not search Ram because it needs to search 1500 or less defense, but it is able to search those other 2. Yeah, Unicorn really only made the cut because it was just a Link 3 that you can make with Asa if that comes up. Like in matchups where you're not summoning a Zoo, you're summoning like a random Earth. Like you get to turn a Link 2 into a Unicorn, right? So you get to like climb up and get like the valuable effect of Unicorn if you can. I know Ryan, he also played this deck card for card list, and he also he had a situation where Asa allowed him to make a Unicorn and a Phoenix co-linked against a Prank Kid matchup. And like just being able to steal their Roxy's allowed him to do that. And that was just probably more funny than it should have been, because you should never be co-linking Link monsters in this control deck. But Phoenix, so like, yes, Phoenix is like your typical like Link 2 generic card, right? But having 1900 attack mattered so many times. Like it was just that threshold where like a Lord and the Zeus got to kill something because it had 1900 attack. Like 1900 and 1850 just make it so Zeus, a Lord, and the Link monster kills them.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then lastly, Barricade Borg. This is again another fairly generic one, just 2 different names, but it's discard effect to add back a continuous spell from the graveyard at the end phase. Allows you to add back.
Ooh.
Yeah, it allows you to add back Eldland as well as Tenki and Barrage. So allowing you to recycle some of these Zoo names a little bit.
That's actually really awesome.
Putting a face-up spell on the field so that Lord can just send it away to summon itself. And so like it'll be in the grave for you to add back off Barricade Board whenever you need it to.
How often do you actually make this guy?
I didn't have to make it in this last tournament, but like in testing, we were summoning it like every 3 games, like or so. Like it comes up randomly, but like you would always want to have it for the situation, right? When you just want to be able to get to another zoo. Because this zoo deck is not like the old zoo decks from 2017 where you have Broadbull and like every zoo just gets you another one. Once you use one zoo, you probably don't have it anymore. Like it's so easy for them to kill a Dryden, right? Or it just turns into Zeus and like there's no more zoos left. So like Barricade Borg is like a way to get you into another name if you need it to. It's just like a utility in the extra deck where you kind of have the space, right? Like you don't really need a whole lot.
All right, let's look into your extra deck package on this side, which would be your Xyz. So I don't know if there's too much to actually talk about for Zoodiacs. I think most of them are pretty self-explanatory. Is there anything you want to add for that?
Basically, we're just playing the exact number to make Zeus with 4 materials twice. So this is like the bare minimum to be able to do that.
So 2
and then
Borbo to actually make to make it pretty easy to get there.
Yeah, like Borbo basically is the one that attacks twice, and then you just put a Tiger Mortar and a Chakanine on top of it, and then that's a Zeus with 4 material. You shouldn't always do that, by the way. Just don't play into Nibiru if you don't have to. This deck should always play around every hand trap if it can, because one of the values of this deck is that you can never get hand trapped, really. Not for like crazy.
What about Thoroughblade? Would you actually use Thoroughblade's effect?
Only if your hand sucks. Like if your hand is like usable, like you think you can win with this hand, I would rather have another zoo to turn into a different Zeus later, right? Like if I'm gonna go first summon Dryden, I would like I know that Dryden's gonna die. I don't ever expect Dryden to live. Like if Dryden lives, I already know I won that game. Like it's just simple. But like I would rather have another zoo after to be able to make Zeus on the next turn.
Okay.
But if I don't think this Dryden, or like if I don't think my hand is strong enough to win the game or like to see another turn, then I have to use the Thoroughblade effect discard, right? And if they have Gamma, they have Gamma. Like it's unfortunate, you know.
Okay, makes sense. Then now we have the double Zeus. What can you tell me that most people do not already know about the Zeus?
So if you only open zoo cards, this card was just given this effect that it didn't need to have. Where if any of your cards are destroyed by your opponent's card effect or by battle, you can attach a card from your hand, deck, or extra deck onto it as a material.
Okay.
So you can easily just attach. Because your opponents will just be activating Twin Twisters randomly, or like beating over some other monster, or you can even crash a monster sometimes, so that you can equip or attach a Golden Land or a Sanguine from your deck and automatically get you to that engine.
That's actually really smart. That's actually a very, like, most people just attach like random cards, but you're actually attaching stuff that will have like consequences if they actually do it. They think they're simplifying the game state, but I feel like they just actually complicated it even more.
And there will be times when like you only have zoo cards and they just have some stuff like you're still in an okay position, but being able to crash a random monster and then equipping a Golden Land that you like will later detach for Zeus to like set a Sanguine that turn will win you the game. Like that will be a huge swing because you just get access to a whole other engine. And then also Zeus obviously not being once per turn like at all for that part of its effect.
That part of the effect to me is just stupid.
Yes,
why is it not once per turn? It's so hard. Like if you have a double activation of Zeus, you can't even imperm the guy because he's just going to activate twice.
Yeah,
guaranteed.
It's what's so good into a board of negates. Like if they have like Savage, Herald, or something like that, and you just make a Zeus with like 6 materials, you can just resolve it through Savage Herald, which is super funny.
I think that's just OP. That's just too OP for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's only as OP as the decks it's used against, right? Like, and I think this deck is the one that can abuse it more than anything else, because this is the only deck that's really making it with more than 2 material at a time. Like, it's the only deck that can really get it for 2 uses automatically. Yes. And I think that's like the reason why Zoo is good, right? Like, I think every other deck that plays Zeus, like, it's cool in their deck, but it's extremely oppressive in ours.
Okay, well, that was actually very, very thorough. Really appreciate that. Let's go into the side deck. We have here double Alpha, 1 Pancratops. This is something I really want to ask you about. Triple Mistaken Arrest, triple DDG, triple Token Collector, and then you have a handful of Kaijus.
Right. So there is like a way to kind of like break down this side deck. Token Collector is like its own body, but then the spells and traps are in their own section, and the Kaijus and the Panks and the Alphas are meant to work together as well. So let's start with the board breakers, right? The kaijus, the alphas, and the pank. So this is these are the 6 cards you're siding in versus combo decks like Dragon, or like any combo deck that you can reasonably beat going second because of board breakers, like not Noble Knight essentially, right? You cannot beat that deck going second by trying to play into the board. It's just not going to work. So these cards all trade with either 2 of their interruptions or completely remove the Buster Lock, right? The kaijus completely remove the Buster Lock. So as long as you can deal with the spheres, you can get through the whole thing, because you will be able to resolve a Zeus, or you will just be able to limit their, you just get to pick away at the board where the Eldlich part will just be able to clean up. Like being able to kaiju the Savage with Buster equipped to it is such a huge swing, where they should try to play around that by putting it on like the Levineer that they got to keep on the board. But usually there's many times where they can't do that. And this is just going to make it so easy to actually break the board, because in the field that has the Buster Lock on the Savage, if you kaiju that, you only have to deal with the Herald and the Sphere, which like for most decks, that's not even that hard.
That's a battle phase away.
Yeah, like it's not that difficult to deal with, and you have many ways to do it. But they also pair well with the cards in your main deck, because an alpha, like, so together, just for instance, like an alpha and a pank, which consider like almost the same card, but like alpha and a kaiju outs the whole board by itself, right? So you would just go kaiju on the Buster Lock, and then you go alpha, attack over, either you attack over the Herald and they let you, or they have to bounce it, right? And if they bounce it, you just get to summon it back, use its effect, Herald will negate it, the board's gone.
Oh.
And then you're just free to play anything you want. But this also interacts the same way with cards like Book of Moon, right? Like if you have Alpha Book of Moon, you do the same thing. You force the spheres, and then you get rid of the Herald, and then you book the Savage, and then like you have to deal with just the Buster Lock now. You have dealt with every negate. And then it also functions well with cards like Droplets and stuff like that. You're siding out typically Cosmic and Ash in this matchup, but you will have your Nibiru's in here to like hopefully break down the board. But then the Droplets and the Book of Moons are all chainable using like cards like Alpha as well to just pick apart the board and make sure they don't get to get the valuable effects. Droplet is more often used on the spheres than not, because that usually means that a zoo monster gets to hit directly, and then you just get to resolve Zeus, and it's just done from there. So like the matchup is actually not that hard to break their board going second.
Okay.
I don't think I've lost that deck going second, actually. I've only lost that deck going first, where the situation comes up where I do not have enough defense and they just kill me.
Okay. Is there any like boards that Dragon Link would try to build once they know it is this matchup that they would do differently? Would they just go to the standard, because the standard is just so strong that if they have it, they have it?
I have broken a board where I played against a 60-card Dragon Link, and he made the full board, ripping a card out of my hand with Levineer, as well as an extra Dragoon on the field. A
Dragoon? Wow. Okay. Well, that's really greedy.
So, like his deck was obviously like more extensive, and like he played the Saryuja, the Dragoon package in his extra deck. So there was essentially 2 cards that had to be cut from his extra deck, right?
Yeah.
And luckily for me, one of them was Boral Sword.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening was, like of my 5 cards that remained in my hand, I had a Droplet, a Book of Moon, a Whiptail, an Eldland, and a Kaiju. And he made the mistake of putting the Buster Lock on the Savage instead of the Predaplant. So I got to Kaiju the Savage, and that removed the Buster Lock and the Savage negate. And then I got to essentially bait out the spheres by summoning a Whiptail after already resolving Eldon for a spell, for a trap rather. And when he used the spheres, I got to chain Droplet, sending my Eldland and my Whiptail to negate the Dragoon and the Herald. And to which I then got to send the Lord off Eldon effect, step the Conquistador that I searched, summon back the Lord, attack over the Dragoon, and even though I left up part of his board, he just had no follow-up. And then my Eldritch cards went infinite. So he just lost the next turn.
That's real awesome. Because right now in the game, I would say most people have the biggest trouble with Dragon Link, especially with the Buster Lock board, and you're giving us so many ways of actually breaking it with this deck. So guys, make sure you guys smash thumbs up right now, because this is the kind of info that you guys really should get, and go check out Duelist Academy for that stuff as well. But that has been like the bane for like I guess most of the not as competitive players dealing with Dragon Links at their locals, at the remote duel. This is the stuff that they need to know. Sorry about that.
No, yeah, like I definitely thought it was really annoying to deal with Dragon Link, but I felt like hand traps are really inconsistent at doing the job, especially since like there aren't like beyond Imperm, Nibiru, Gamma, and Ash. They're like, or not even Ash, not Ash at all. Like beyond Imperm, Gamma, Nibiru, the hand traps aren't consistently dealing with anything. Lancia and Droll, it's either it does the whole thing or it does nothing. Like, right, and they will not pair with each other. So I would rather break the board than rely on hand traps that don't do the job consistently. These cards will always do the same thing. They have an intended purpose and they do it well. So I'd rather rely on these than any given hand trap, which is why we went for more like spell and traps and like these board breakers instead of hand traps.
Okay.
And then there's Token Collector, right? So Token Collector is in that odd scenario where people are still playing Noble Knight and you run into it and you don't want to just concede going second, right? Like
pack. Sorry.
Yeah, like you need like Token Collector is the only hand trap where you get to use it early enough that it can potentially turn off the whole combo. If Token Collector sticks and they don't negate it, you will see a turn. Like they will not hand loop you. They do not do any of the dumb stuff. So it is like the only truly reliable hand trap against that deck. I've mentioned why I don't like Gamma before because it's a card that like should probably be in the main, and that is not a card that you can main in this deck because it will not do anything going first. And it's also impossible to use on your first turn because again you do not activate monster effects.
Okay.
So not a card that you can really get value of in this deck, and a card that we don't think should be in this deck.
Yeah.
But Token Collector is a card, like it's the only card I would change in from my list because I didn't really want to respect the Noble Knight matchup. I ended up playing against two, so I mean it was cool that I had it. But I think I wanted more for the Virtual World matchup going second because I had a lot of cards to side in going first, but I wouldn't side any of these current cards that I have in here going second against the deck. Like I would only side in the Pankratops. And like, given I won all my Virtual World matchups, but like, I thought one of the only ways that you can actually deal with the VFD situation is ignoring it, because this deck can ignore calamities very easily and just set them back.
Just drop a Dryden? Is that one of the best ways?
Okay, it would be one of the best ways if they didn't always have the trap card. And it's true, they will always have the trap card because it's more likely that they can get to VFD with the trap card than without. So you have to try to figure out a way to see through the turn, like the pass back. You will have your turn, set some back row, pass back to them, and then live through that turn, and that's how you can win the game. Okay. So if I want to respect that matchup more, I would sub these Token Collectors for Torrential Tributes. So when they commit onto the board and you torrential them, and then you still have Eldlich cards to play, you will be able to outgrind them from there.
All right.
That's the only thing I would change.
There's the Mistaken Arrest. That I haven't seen in forever.
Yes. Okay, so these 6 cards are essentially trying to do the same thing, and we broke it down a lot deeper in the VOD. We broke down a lot of this stuff a lot deeper in the VOD, but
check it out in the description.
Yeah, so if you look at these 6 cards, you'll notice one thing that's similar in all 6 of them, right? They are chainable whenever.
Yeah.
So it's like the thing that we figured out with this deck is going first, and being afraid of like going first post side. The thing that separates the combo decks from backward decks typically is backward removal. There are much more effective backward removals versus anything else that you can have for combo decks, and that's why control decks start losing post side. Yes. But Eldlich cards are actually really good against backward removal because they will just float into more. But the thing is, you just have to live for another turn, and that's the hard part, right? Getting to survive another turn. All 6 of these cards say your opponent passes their turn.
Oh, nice.
And we went for cards that were chainable, so they wouldn't you would chain these into Twin Twisters, into Lightning Storms, and they would get their effect. Like obviously, like you could have been playing Macro or Mistake. Those are continuous effects that do the same thing, and they would last longer. Or you could be playing There Can Be Only One, but that doesn't answer the problem of like Lightning Storms or Evenlies or something like that. These cards you can chain into them, and you will know that they will resolve because there's nothing that interacts with these. Like okay, like different Dimension Ground, they might be able to reboot, but there's really nothing that they will interact with these with. And so you will be able to usually see another turn, as well as you'll. I guess I didn't mention this yet, but there's a lot of matchups that you would choose second post side.
Oh, okay.
Like just essentially not. If you're not playing against combo, you actually prefer to go second, just because you have your Zoo monsters can turn into Zeus rather than not turning into Zeus. And I've mentioned before, sometimes like your going first might be too weak into a board. Like Dino specifically, right? That is a deck you want to go second against, because your cards are really good going second, and their cards are really good going second, but not that good going first. So you might as well take advantage of that. And then also kind of comes into the situation, they're going to make you go first, and every deck that makes you go first, if you flip one of these on, you will see another turn, and you will basically get the advantage back. And that was the point of these decks.
So you're using basically the correct tempo to kind of control the game with these cards. Oh, that's really cool. Oh, this is really awesome. Never expected to see these cards back in, but this is really cool. Different Dimension Ground, Mistaken Arrest. Really smart choices to dodging back row removal, or rather take advantage of the existing back row removal.
Yeah, like I want them to Lightning Storm me, because then my Eldritch cards will float anyway. I just won't activate them and then turn them into new ones in the end phase. And because the Different Dimension Ground, by the way, only says monsters, so all my Eldritch traps will still go to the grave.
That's true. It's a dimensional fissure, not a macrocosmos.
So I'm just getting more value out of you using your back row removals against me than you are. So
this has been super insightful. Esala, thank you for actually running down the entire deck. I don't think we actually need to. There is no real combo portion of this, because this is not exactly a combo deck, guys.
Pass.
Trident, pass, or safely break a board. You already went through like everything about board breaking. In fact, I think the whole board breaking part was the combo of this video. So make sure you guys hit that thumbs up, hit subscribe, ding the notification bell. But of course, Esala, I pass it back to you. What are the shoutouts that you can give again?
Yeah, definitely check us out on the Patreon, where you can get a bunch of commentary on this. You can get like some one-on-one experience, or you can just talk within our community. We have a Discord that we are very active in, and then we host our tournaments in there 4 times a month. So be sure to check us out, patreon.com/Duelist Academy. Also follow us on Twitch, twitch.tv/Duelist Academy, and check out our YouTube, youtube.com/Duelist Academy.
Yes. I highly recommend it, guys. There's a lot to learn, and especially if you guys are trying to get better at this game, you gotta get a lot of perspective, and you're getting the perspective from the best players in the world. Especially when you check out Duelist Academy. So this is 100% a Tombox recommendation if you guys haven't checked them out already. And well, that's all I got for this video, guys. If you guys enjoyed our special guest of Esala, thank you again for joining me on this profile of yours. And